Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bell podcast. I'm really excited. I recently, a few months ago, interviewed this lady in an in-person event in Cork City. I love her. I love her ethos. Her story is super important. Just so you know, we will be talking about fertility. A lot of you know my story. Some of you won't know her story, but potentially she has a slightly happier ending than me. Although we're both super happy people, and that's the message that we want to get across today. So, without further ado, I give you Miss Chupi Sweetman. Welcome to this week's episode of Bell. I am here with the sparkly, the queen of diamonds, I'd love to say, the amazing Chupi. Welcome.
Oh, it's a pleasure. What a gorgeous way to spend Friday afternoon. This is heaven.
It doesn't get much better. I was actually saying yesterday on my way up, like I can't really complain. I have the best life. I get to talk to amazing people most days and learn from all of them. And, you know, we've done a chat before.
We have.
We did a lovely event actually down in Brown Thomas in Cork. But today, I suppose, I know from a certain time of your life. So today, I'd like to go back,
Gorgeous.
I suppose, and tell me where it all began. Where were you born?
So I was born quite literally in the Wicklow Mountains.
Oh,
so yeah, Wicklow in my DNA. So my mum and dad lived all over the world. So mum is Irish, dad is English. And they moved out to Sri Lanka, lived in Guatemala, Honduras, down into Peru. Spoke Spanish a lot of the time they were there. They were about 10 years in Central and South America. And then decided to come home to Ireland to have babies. And my mum her grandparents had been in Wicklow, and so she just had a Wicklow love affair. And they looked all over the place. But Wicklow, and I always think kind of Ireland is imperfect beauty. And kind of for Chupi, for everything I've done in my career has always been about imperfect beauty, not the shiny, high, the beautiful coast, but just the magic of that rugged beauty. So in Wicklow, in my parents' house, my mum was like, I saw women give birth in the Amazon, darling, and just they did. And so I did as well. And so it was my mum, my dad and the midwife at home in Wicklow.
Amazing. Firstborn?
How can you tell, Shan? Yeah, I am the epitome of the firstborn child. Very impatient, very, okay, let's get shit done. Firstborn. And arrived in, my mum she felt the first twinge at 12:30 at night, and I was born at 3:30 in the morning, 2 weeks early.
Wow.
I am impatience personified.
Okay. Yeah. God, she shot you out like a pea.
I was like, I'm ready for the world, people. I'm here.
Welcome. And siblings?
I have. Well, that's a complicated question. So I've one little brother. I am both the eldest of two and the middle child of six, depending on how you count it. So my dad is on his fifth marriage at this stage. I think we've stopped counting after a certain point. You just give up. But it means I've got a gorgeous family of brothers and sisters, of halves, of steps.
Yeah.
And I have one little brother who is in Ireland. And little, he's sort of 6'3" giant filmmaker. And he's here. But my big sister always said the loveliest thing. So we go from, the oldest would be 64 and the youngest is 29. So we're a big gap. And we are currently in only 2 continents, which is pretty good going for us. We're normally more spread out. 2 continents, 3 countries. But my big sister always said the loveliest thing. She said, so she's 21 years older than me, and she said we were luckier than most people because we could choose to love each other. And I always thought it shaped my perception of love, my perception of family, of how these things are made. I thought it was gorgeous.
I say that to my husband a lot.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say to him, I'm not with you because I need to be with you. I'm quite happy by myself, but I love him. So it's nice to have him around.
And I think it's a funny one because quite often love and obligation sit side by side. And people quite frequently stay in quite toxic relationships, whether with their families they were born into, whether in relationships, as opposed to going, it's okay to say it's over. We've changed, you've changed, just because you're born into a family. I always think of another lovely thing of that. I have the family I was born into. Yeah. I have the family I made with my husband and our little girl. And we have the family we've grown together of this incredible gang of people. And that's actually, I was just turned 40 a few weeks ago. And that was one of my prezzies was from our gang of all photographs of the last decade of the family we've made together. And just like this, there's now babies are starting to come in and just this life we've created and seeing it going on. And just huge.
I mean, what a beautiful place to be born, like Wicklow. So what was your childhood like?
Chaotic or idyllic, depending on how you look at it. So I was homeschooled.
Yeah.
I'm afraid Enoch Burke is doing us no favours at present in terms of homeschooling. He is on one extreme end of the spectrum. When I was little, homeschooling was very much, it was more woods. So my mum is one of the founding members of the women's movement. Sort of bra burning, contraception train throwing group. And there was an amazing woman who wrote a book called all about unschooling society. And my mum was always fascinated by this idea that is school serving its purpose, which is to educate, to inspire, to capitalize on all of our best talents. I always think, you put 30 people in a room. We're very, very different. The things that excite me might not excite you. The ways I learn may not be the ways you learn. And so my mum had always been fascinated by homeschooling. And then I was very sick when I was little. So I was really sick. Long story. But it meant that I couldn't go to school.
Okay.
So I had measles, mumps, despite the vaccinations. Obviously, I got all the vaccines. Shingles when I was 12. I was a really sick kid. And so I couldn't really be in a conventional school because I was getting everything.
Yeah.
And I was just constantly very sick. So I was homeschooled, which is one of those really interesting things. Probably like most hard things. Tough at the time, incredible as an adult. It just is, it's an amazing gift of sort of, I think the biggest thing it teaches you, good homeschooling, is that you can guide your own destiny.
Okay.
In a way in school that, if your French is bad, well, maybe your teacher's bad. Maybe they're not teaching you properly. Maybe the books aren't good enough. Maybe you're falling behind. Whereas I think I got very comfortable very young knowing where I was good and where it's not my aptitude. So I really struggle with languages.
Okay.
And my mum speaks a couple, and my name is Spanish, and I just never got it. But math, I love numbers.
You win my game.
Yeah. No, I've always loved numbers and the way, and I've loved art.
Yes.
And so those two things, which I would normally have had to choose, be artistic, or be numerical, and whereas I didn't have to.
Yeah. No, it's funny actually because obviously. I was chatting earlier today with Una O'Hagan, and she went to school in Northern Ireland. I went to school in the UK, and we were talking. So the way that school was when we were growing up, we didn't have to choose. It's slightly different.
Yeah.
So you could be anything that you wanted, and I think like hearing that from now, it's actually a realization that actually my friends didn't get that.
No. I think it's a huge challenge. And it's not no shade at teachers.
No.
How do you educate 30 people? How do you understand their needs, their hopes, their dreams? I think it's such a weird thing. Like school, basically, you put them in at 5 and you tell them they can be anything they want to be. By 10, you're saying you need to start thinking about a career. And by 15, you're either being told you're going to be able to do doctor, vet, whatever you want to go do, or you're worthless and sure, what are you bothering even coming here? You've literally been streamed. If you put a kid into the lowest class, they're never getting out. If you put a kid into the highest class, they will hang on by their teeth to stay in there. And so now we're coming up to school for our daughter. And so it's really, we will send her to school because we live in Dublin City.
Yes.
So there's no way she's got to go to school. We was fine in the country. The other thing that's amazing about growing up in the country is it's so socially equal.
Okay.
So there was only 12 kids who were my age in the surrounding probably 10 miles. And so I was friends with all of them because, whether it was the labourers' kids who had literally, generations had never owned their own home, or the wealthiest family in the district, everyone hung out together because there's only a couple of kids your age.
Yeah.
And I loved that. I thought, that social equality is so huge.
So you and your brother both homeschooled?
Both homeschooled.
Okay. Yeah. And at what age did that homeschooling finish?
It didn't.
Okay.
I briefly, at age 15, decided I wanted to go to school. All my cousins were in school and I thought, okay, cool. Yeah, I'd like to try the school thing. Wasn't particularly interested in the local schools. My friends didn't report back amazing things. So I persuaded my mum to take me around and let me interview some of the headmasters in some of the schools. Very opinionated, as you can imagine. That homeschooling definitely gives you that. And so I went to Rathdown, went to Jared's, went to King's House, went to Newtown in Waterford. Was ultimately where I really loved the headmaster. I thought he was a really interesting man, and bless them, like they facilitated this kind of quite, opinionated 15-year-old being like, and
So
tell
they
me
were
about your
fascinated.
curriculum. What do you do? What does this look and feel like? And I was going into transition year, which everyone felt was a really good idea because
Yeah.
I'd be going from a very unstructured, I'd done my junior cert, I'd taught myself my junior cert, but I'd go from this very unstructured education into a sort of semi-structured one, so everyone thought I'd thrive. I did not thrive. I was there for about a month, and I'd come from, I like really high pressure. I really enjoy it. Not every day.
Yes.
But I like learning. If I like something, I want to learn every single thing about it. And I went into transition year, and I remember doing a home ec class because I was like, this would be interesting. And we made a meal and threw it away at the end. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? What are we doing? Going into a history class. And teachers were wonderful, but 40-minute class. And we had only begun to scratch the surface before we were out again. And it did not suit the way I needed to learn. Loved the social aspect. I really did. I really liked being with the people and all the fun and all that. But yeah, so it didn't end. I basically took my brief little sojourn into boarding school. I taught myself my leaving cert, and it's very doable. I always think everyone gets very hung up on this idea. There's certain subjects I couldn't do. Woodwork wasn't an option. Chemistry, didn't have a lab at home. But the things I did learn, like history, geography, biology. I didn't do biology at leaving. History, geography, economics. Yeah, it's very doable. They're so doable at home.
And so when did you decide what path you wanted to take?
I have had Del Boy urges since I was a very young girl. I definitely think. I remember my granny was Sandy Mount, and I remember had a little orchard out the back. And now this orchard, Jan, produced the worst plums and apples you've ever tasted. Like honestly, Granny was forever heartbroken how terrible the plums were and the apples. But I managed to rally all the cousins. My mum's a twin.
Yeah.
And from Cork. So her twin, I said to you, was based in Cork. And there's 5 of us, gang of kids who are all very, very close in age, and they're like brothers and sisters. And so rallied the cousins, and we're like, okay, guys, we're going to go and empty Granny's orchard and go and sell them. Literally 7 or 8. I was age 7 or 8. Set up the little stand on Sandy Mount, and sold our little, and like, it was such a gorgeous. So that was probably my first foray. Throughout my kind of school years, I had various little tiny businesses, little side hustles. I always just loved. We'd no money as well,
Yeah.
so there wasn't. Mum would give us everything in the world, but there wasn't it. And so I always thought it wasn't really like I couldn't. We lived in the mountains. I couldn't go get a kind of side, a little like working in a newspaper
Saturday job.
Exactly, it wasn't a thing. And so I always had these, we at one stage ran a little tiny catering business, a little kind of doing little gorgeous like kind of food and pizzas and things. And probably my first real, the thing kind of started the direction of my career was I always loved making things.
Yeah.
And I would always describe design and art as being 2 very different disciplines. So if you're an artist, you want to create one incredibly beautiful thing that connects with one person's soul. That's it. Just one beautiful piece of art, one beautiful dress, one beautiful sculpture. And you want one person to be like, that's the thing. And ultimately, you're almost always heartbroken at letting it go. Whereas I have always, from very little, loved design. And my best description I've ever heard of design is it's creative problem solving. So your job as a designer is to solve a problem. And so when I was little, I solved the problem of my dollies had no clothes. They were my clients. They had nothing to wear. I created wardrobes. Literally, my mum got me my first sewing machine when I was 5. A real singer, like an actual electronic. You just think, who gives a 5-year-old a singer? Yeah.
Well, my niece was 6 yesterday, and she wants a sewing machine.
Get her one.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Honestly, like look, I never sewed myself to it, and all the drama, and you can get little mini ones.
Yeah.
But my dollies needed clothes, and like I can see it in my own little girl now. She fashions whole little outfits out of toilet roll and sellotape, and she's 3. So I'll wait a little bit till I get with her one. But it's that ability to create.
Yeah.
Children are there; they're bursting full of life, and my mum said, "Okay, cool, I'll get you a sewing machine."
That's amazing.
You have to. She'll adore it.
Yes. No, listen, there's a reson that we're here today. I'm going to buy it.
And it was such a gift. I started making outfits. And then 16, and I was maybe 15, probably 14, 15 started earlier, was making these little bags. And my local hairdresser, Elizabeth Deegan in Kildare, said, "Oh, these are so beautiful. Why don't I give you a window in the little hairdressers?" And to say, like, the village was maybe, not my village is about 500 people, but in Hollywood, but the village next door, Ballymore, was maybe 1,000 people. But she gave me the window from my little bags. And I always think of Liz with such, I haven't seen her in years. And then I started making a few more, and I went into a gorgeous shop called Shay She. So Shay She was in Temple Bar, and lots of actually Irish designers got their start there. So it was a kind of sailor return. You brought in your beautiful things, and if they sold them, you got paid. And it was very fair. It was like kind of a 50-50 split, so which is very fair in now retail markups are bunkers, but it was lovely. I was 16 when I walked through Shay She's doors.
Nice.
And that was that's 24 years ago.
Yeah.
The start of forever for me.
It's so weird. I look at people of that age now, and it's like a lot of me and my friends, like yourself, at 16. I mean, I moved out at 16. I had my first job. I was a manager for Jigsaw at 17.
Gosh.
I look at my nephews, my nieces now, and I'm like, they're in their 20s and they haven't started that yet. And I'm like, God, I'd learned so much at such a young age.
We're more afraid because we know more. So terrible things happened when you and I were growing up. Terrible things happened, but they weren't as widely known and they were much more secret. Now we're much more conscious of danger. And my daughter, I think, will probably be first allowed out of the house by herself when she's about 25, judging by my husband's reaction. No, I won't. It'll be different because I think that experience, now she's going to be working in the family business from about 10 or 11 because he grew up in his parents' family business. I grew up. So, that value of work and of your own money.
Yeah.
Of my money. I made this, I bought it. That.
Yeah.
How empowering it is.
It's massive.
Yeah.
I was teaching some transition girls actually. It was last year, and I asked, there were 40 or so in the room, and I said, who's earning their own money, who's got a job? Yeah. Only 2 girls put their hands up, and I was like, tell me how that feels.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I work in a chip shop, so I stink of chips. And I went, yeah, but at the end, when you want to buy that short skirt, you've got to ask permission. You don't, do you? And she's like, oh no, I can buy what I want. And I'm like, what a feeling.
It's just, and I think that's, I guess, probably a job as us and a job on us as the adults in the room to make sure they get the opportunities to do it.
Yeah.
To go and have those moments. Because I guess I made my own moment in that I didn't have, there wasn't a job. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll make a business. And it was wonderful, kind of sold a dress a week. They were 30 pounds, old money, 30 pounds. But it was incredible. Met some really dear friends. Went to Cowes Lane Fashion Market, which was £25 a week for a pitch each because it was so expensive. We had to split it with 2 friends, 3 of us. I were still in touch with today.
Yeah.
And and I swear to God, it was the coldest. Honestly, I always think about it. It must have been built in a graveyard. Whatever happened in Cowes Lane on Temple Bar, we used to stand on cardboard because it was so cold. So cold. So in those kind of plastic fake Ugg boots on cardboard to try and keep the cold out. But it was brilliant because that problem solving, I was solving the Friday night problem. And that was what ultimately took me to kind of my first big step in my career, that kind of big, those moments, you look back on those milestone moments. So 16 to kind of 20, my husband, my boyfriend, we were together since we were kids. We were together 24 years the other day, which is wild.
Wow.
Yeah, since we were babies. He was like, you've got to go to, you should go to uni. And I was like, really? Do I need to? Why would I bother? And because in the midst of all of this, whilst having the little fashion label, I'd written a cookbook. So that's my other job.
Yes.
Eating. So I'd said I'd been sick. So I'd had a whole bunch of food intolerances and allergies. And, I literally remember the book that the nutritionist sent me out with, and it was called Cooking Without. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And it had recipes with kidneys and kidney beans. And I just remember thinking, that's like,
got to be more to life.
I was veggie as well. So I was like, keep your weird bits of animal. And so my brother and I started cooking. He's 3 years younger. And actually he's kept the cooking up. So he and his gorgeous fiance, they have a whole thing called the Isolation Bakers, and they just, Hendrix Gin just shared a big reel of theirs. They've got this gorgeous little side hustle. They're filmmakers. She's an Emmy award-winning filmmaker.
Oh, wow.
And he's won some other gorgeous awards as well. And so they've got this big food hustle. So they've kept food going, but I'm afraid my food part of my career was very short. So we wrote a cookbook when we started probably 15, and I was 15, he was 12. It was published in Dublin, in London. So Dublin by Gillian Mack, in London by Macmillan, in New York by Marlowe when we were 18 and 15. It was kind of all about cooking without dairy, wheat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Loved it. It was such good fun.
Can you still buy that?
You can't. It's out of print.
Oh.
And I'll send you a copy though. I still have some. And we loved it. It was such good fun. But it was very early days for that kind of whole more wholesome side of food. So I look at it now and we were kids and that's kind of what made it fun. I was so simple, really simple cooking and like nice things you'd actually want to eat. Like the perfect chips. Still the perfect. My brother is the king of chips. He makes the best chips in Ireland. And loved it. But then I kind of took a sidebar. My boyfriend was like, you really got to go to uni. He just really felt he was the first in his family to go to uni, first for literally how many generations back. And he felt, well, it's such a privilege, we should do it. So I went and did fashion. Loved it. This time because I think I had chosen to go and it was an amazing, really good little course out in Dunleary and Sallynoggin. And it was a 5-day-a-week course. And I said, well, if I can do it in 3, can I do it in 3? And they said, sure. You're not going to be able to. And I was like, I'll take that challenge. Yeah. And got a really poor grade on my first assignment. Just a bit of a shock. I don't think I'd ever had a C or a D. I was like, oh my God.
Dare they?
I was like, what have I done? How the hell? But I really thrive. And it was really funny. Our teacher, our lecturer, only gave one person in the class, I think, a B or an A. I said, I always, I want you to fight for it. You are not coming here to walk. There was only a little PLC, like a London City and Guilds diploma. But I was like, she wanted us to fight for it. And it was so good. And I went, okay, cool. Got that, went, I'm going to smash it and managed to make it work. I squeezed it down and I was there for a year.
Amazing. And yeah, I mean, I love this piece of the puzzle and, that you started in the market, then you went...
And stayed in the damn market. The market was my side job through college. It paid for all of it.
But then you got picked up.
I did. So Topshop were just about to, who were once cool, Jan.
Yes.
They were once cool.
Listen, I worked on Oxford Street. That was the shop.
Oh, like Topshop Oxford Circus. It literally was the shop. It was the shop. And I think at 40, I was, whenever I talk, whenever I'm doing something, I was such a reminder. I was like, no, I swear it was once cool. Very sad demise. Jane Shepherdson was creative director at the time. They were just about to launch the Kate Moss collaboration. They were riding high on Britpop 2005. Like we were just in it. And they were about to open their first flagship on what is now... what is it? It's basically like a workspace on Stephen's Green.
That's right.
Was Habitat.
Yeah.
So Habitat had just vacated and they were turning it into a Topshop. And they were scouting for young designers to come do collections, do a collection for them. And the Topshop scout came through. Celestine Cooney was the stylist, still today out doing incredible things all over the world, Celestine. And got a Topshop business card from a scout. And I remember thinking, like, the moments of that journey are engraved on my mind because it's the card, then the meeting to present my collection. I had maybe 5 or 6 pieces with no cohesive story. Like there wasn't a collection. There were just, I've always thought I'm less interested in what the buyer needs. What commercial buyers need is they need a collection and a story and a theme that will fit in the store. I always thought my job was to create things that make people happy. So solve the Friday night problem. And so I was less worried, did they match? Because like if you buy the dress, you're not really buying the skirt. Yes, it looks better merchandised in the store, but I'm not buying all 3 pieces from that collection or 5 pieces. So bless them. They somehow saw the potential and I got offered a spot in Topshop.
And then it just sounds like a nightmare.
It was an experience. Well, first I went to, first opening day was 5th of November 2005. I still celebrate it. I always go out for dinner and drinks on our anniversary. And it'll be, it's a big moment. 19 years this year. And shelves were full. Bless my friends, quite literally, gang of friends sewing labels onto the clothes. And everything was made in Ireland. So it was insane. Doing it all, incredible team of friends, an amazing seamstress working for us. Got it onto the shelves. And we sold out on the first night. Like a couple of, we'd 12 linear feet, which is sort of 2 6-foot rails. And so in retail, you know this, we count linear feet. How much is that brand taking? How many linear feet? What's that on? What was this footage? 12 linear. And we sold out the first night. And I was 21. I was a baby. I didn't realize that brands carry as much stock in the back of house as they do on the floor. I had no idea. So I was standing there, quite literally naked, like as in swinging rails. And it was brilliant. We were on essentially 3-week contracts. So target set, hit your targets. After 3 weeks, you weren't hitting your targets.
This is what's crazy to me, to be working on a 21-day rollover for such a long time. 100
cycles. Did it for 100 cycles. So
it's just mad, isn't it?
And you know, they were incredible. Like it was such a good team to work with. I love so much the Topshop gang are still out in the world today, and they were amazing to work with. It was brutal. Like it was all about hit your targets, hit your targets, hit your targets. But there was also kindness in there and really good people, and it kept you on your toes. Like it was, and also we were selling dresses for €59. So when we'd moved to €2 at that stage, but selling dresses for 59 quid that were made in Ireland. So it was a 6 years, really good experience.
So there's so much in that. Like you've got your 3 weeks, so every 21 days, you had
to hit your targets weekly.
Yeah.
But just the 3 weeks was like,
there's your notice.
Come on now. Yeah.
But like, that is high pressure.
It was.
Without a doubt. I wonder if anybody get away with that now. I don't know. I've never heard of...
I'd say it's worse.
Oh, really?
Oh, I think so.
Oh,
yeah. No, I'd say it's worse.
But like, what does that do? You know, obviously you meet your future husband when you're young. Like, what does that do to your relationship?
It's a good question. Actually, no one's asked me that.
Okay.
So 21, I started November 2005. I took my first day off September 2007. There might have been like afternoons or little bits, but my first kind of weekend off, because we went to London together for a trip. And that was kind of 19 months just worked, 20 months head down. It was what had to be done to get through those first 20 months. And to be fair, they burnt through a lot of the people they brought in. There was a gang of us and it was pretty brutal. And I think that we were at the right age. You know, I always think there's ages and chapters in your life. And you've got to recognize the chapter you're in. And we were in this. You know, he had just, my husband had just, boyfriend, he had just graduated. He was just heading into his first job. He'd come out into the dot-com bust. So he'd gone done computer science. He'd bought his first computer when he was 12.
Okay.
So 1995, walks into this electronic shop, because there weren't computer shops at the time. And he said, I want a computer. And it was about £1,500, which was basically a house deposit. And they had to get his dad to co-sign. And he got his first computer. And so it's just this like love of technology, just as obsessed with it. And so we were just in he'd come out into the dot-com bust and ended up in a customer support job. It was the only job he could get in a network company, but still customer support, working nights. And so we were in it. And it was, I think I'm really grateful I had him that young, because he was the reminder that we had a life outside and that we had, I really credit him with, at many points in our lives, holding our friends. We have so privileged of such an incredible group of friends, and not necessarily because I didn't go to school. I didn't go to uni. As it turns out, I left after a year. So I didn't manage to finish that. That amazing group of friends, he's been so good at being a linchpin when I've been like literally in the bar for an hour making jewellery or making, finishing sewing things on clothes or whatever it was I was doing obsessively to keep my business alive and keep it growing. He's been really good at making
kept those connections for you.
Yeah.
He's a good egg.
He is good. Yeah, he's good. Like, I always say though, like we fight. We are both eldest, very opinionated, really stubborn. We are, we're really strong. And that's kind of what's worked, is that we've quite literally grown up together. But we fought it out and we fixed it and we repaired it. He would say, I don't know what he would say. I would say we're actually much better. We are really good at fighting now. We get to the point really fast, have a big fight, walk away, and then, okay, cool, we figured it out. And I think because we are aligned on the big things, we're aligned on the big, we both have the same social beliefs. We both have the same religious or lack thereof beliefs. We're really well aligned on the things that matter, on babies networks. And there's been moments where it's been unbelievably tough, but it's an incredible privilege to have someone who is just, your partner. Yeah. We are partners. And I remember our first really big fight. And I was like, oh, is it over? And he's like, no, he says he knew on day one we were going to be forever. And he said he didn't want to tell me because he'd freak me out. And so he told me, he was like, I waited a full 2 weeks before I told you I loved you. So like, that was his big,
well done.
And like, he told me at 2 weeks, he was like, I'll marry you one day. And I was like, my mum is wonderful. And I remember it when I eventually, when I told her Brian had proposed we were going to get married, she was like horrified. Because not because she didn't love him and she isn't anti-marriage, but the idea of weddings. So I wasn't brought up to this idea of the white dress. And ironically, now I work in the business of love.
Yes.
I wasn't brought up to this idea of the perfect happily ever after.
It's mad. And it's such a thing about how your parents are, like my mum and dad met when they were 11. She used to watch him out the bedroom window when he was at the bus stop. And, and so for me, it was always that.
Yeah.
They were just always together. They were partners.
Yeah.
100%, And so when, my dad unfortunately passed away a long time ago, but, you're like, how will she cope?
Yeah.
She's lost a piece of her body.
Yeah.
Because that was all she knew, like.
Huge.
So I'm always fascinated by people's relationships and how they work. Joe Brown Ireland offers luxury natural products for both you and your home. They were founded in 2016 with the ethos of developing real premium products in a natural, sustainable way. Their packaging is all bamboo, which is grown naturally. They are very passionate about all the ingredients that they use, to the point of where even they use the plant itself, with the bamboo powder that sit in their body scrub. This actually, on a personal level, is one of my favourites, and also their cleansing balm. They are award-winning, having won 7 Global Beauty Awards. We are super proud to be working with Joe Brown, and thank you for supporting Be-Bell Podcast.
But also I think what always fascinates me is that idea of happiness is not perfection.
Yeah.
When people tell me they don't fight, I'm like, what? Like, well, one of you gives in all the time then, because like someone has to give, because there's, all of that conflict and push. And I think it's just, I actually think it's such a privilege meeting very young, because you haven't been hurt in the way that, like, if you've gone through a few really tough relationships and you are so bruised and battered and you have to protect yourself.
100%.
I think it's kind of how we have stayed, how we've kept things and why we still love each other so much, is because, we've bruised each other for sure, but I think, it's that safety. We need to protect ourselves. And it's so tough when it's so commodified.
Yeah.
Dating and relationships and so hung on this idea of perfection. You meet the perfect person, find a nice girl, settle down, and this timeline we're meant to live our lives on.
Well, it doesn't work, does it? I mean, it's proven it doesn't work.
And we've had I've had so many moments in my life, I think, because as a woman, there's very much like, I was laughing, I would say to Brian, we spent the first 16 years of our relationship being like, don't get married, don't get pregnant, don't get married, don't get, like, our first 10 years, maybe because we met so young, don't get married, don't get pregnant. And then the next term was like, get married, get pregnant, get married. And it's that social pressure to have.
Did you feel that pressure at some point?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I felt as in onboarded it, no, but heard it from people, absolutely, yes. Yeah.
I think that huge thing about the minute you get married, when you have a baby, when you're having a baby.
But even just the get married piece,
okay.
So that's probably, we're probably jumping ahead in terms of, I loved Topshop, but ultimately left. So Brian had said when we were babies that he was like, one day we'll get married. And I'd come from, I adore my mum and I adore my family, but I'd not really thought about a happily ever after. I was really happy, but I didn't think marriage was part of that. For me, it didn't feel like, once your parents are under 50 and dad's on your 5th divorce, I'm kind of like, really? What's the point? Like, why do we bother?
Absolutely, he's doing all right.
Exactly. But 10 years later, so met at 16, at 26, we went away. We got really into this 2-part holiday. It's my favorite thing. So do a dual holiday where you basically 2 places or 2 different experiences. So we would go, in this one we went to Barcelona, partied, had really good fun, stayed out really late, stayed right in the city, and then took the train to Montpellier.
Beautiful.
Turned off. Just like, Montpellier is Le Mans, voted by Le Mans as the city most French people would like to live in.
Oh, wow.
It's just ridiculously, gorgeously, perfectly French. It's really chill. It's, beautiful park, a little walk down to the boulangerie. It's just, heaven. And so we've been there. So we always do this kind of dual holiday, do the split. And went up to Montpellier. And the day we arrived, Brian was being really funny. So I am Garden of Ireland, take me to the mountains, show me the flowers. Brian is a suburban mall kid. He is like, does not understand why you would get off tarmac, cannot believe it. He does not, he just doesn't, he calls it a pointless walk. So my best friend, very conveniently, one of our best friends married each other. So it's terribly useful. So my best friend since I was 2. And we're all besties, like an amazing gang. And they text each other whenever she drags her husband on a pointless walk or whenever.
Yes.
Literally, I've got this wonderful video of, it was kind of Stevens's Day or something. We just doing the Christmas halls and we got up for a walk in the Wicklow Mountains, gorgeous. And we're all texting in the WhatsApp group. And my friend Ush texts in going, do you want to go for a pint? And Brian is like, we're on a pointless walk. And they're texting back and forth, and Ush is like, has she found a stick yet? Because the running joke is like, you want to find, yeah. And he was like, oh, she's found the stick. And he was like, okay, let's go for pints. And I've got this picture of Brian just running down the mountain and being like, we are done. Just like, cannot deal with the pointless walk. I love a ramble.
Yeah, I like a ramble.
Ramble's a gorgeous thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, this day we're arriving to Montpellier. We've been out for the few days. We were in Barcelona. And I think we got really good at travel. I find it hard to disconnect from home because for most of Chupi and most of my career, I've worked from home. And so I've got the reverse problem. I can step over the laundry. I'm not bothered. I can walk past the kitchen. I'm working. It's homeschooling.
Yes.
You don't, you school at home. So when I'm working, I'm in work mode. And so I find it hard to disconnect from him. So we got really good at kind of taking the time for travel. And so in Montpellier, and he wants to go to the Botanic Gardens, Shan.
Okay.
I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Something has happened.
Are you feeling quite well? Is there, I couldn't figure it out. And he kept going, like, let's go for a walk here. And I was like, really, really odd. And I thought, I was reading my book. And I was like, I'm just reading my book. I'm really fine. I'm really tired. We've been out late. And he's like, okay, fine. Whatever. I'm very, it is one problem of homeschooling. I'm very credulous.
Okay.
So if you said your mama's so fat, I'd be like, that is really rude. I don't know why you're saying that. Actually, a friend bought me a few years ago a little book of insults so that I could get better at understanding. She's like, I take people at face value.
Yes. I'm
very trusting. And that's a gift, I think.
I think it's a gift. I think it's also really important. I think we underestimate the amount, it's a good thing.
I think it's a privilege. I didn't go through school and get, have all of that went with it. So I just trust people. I'm like, okay, great. If you tell me the sky was pink, I'd be like, that's really interesting. What do you think made it pink? Should we go check?
Yes.
Like,
I have a lovely friend like that actually as well. Yeah, I love it.
I'm more cynical now. But I've kept it. Once I realized it was a thing in my 20s, I was like, okay, I should honor that part of, I don't want to become cynical for the sake of it. So later that day, he tempted me out with food. So whilst we'd written the first cookbook, and I laugh, I bump into my publisher every now and then, and they're like, Chup, it's the second one. I don't think I'll go back. Maybe. We still cook a lot.
Never say never.
Oh, we love eating.
Yeah.
It's our hobby. I would say we love a lot of cooking. My little girl has started. She loves it. She was chopping the mushrooms for dinner last night. Now, let's be clear, her favourite thing in the entire world is Rice Krispies currently. But she still loves eating and cooking. And when she eats her tofu and noodles, I'm like, yes! Because we're really enthusiastic foodies. So there's a restaurant we both had really wanted to try the last time we'd been in Montpellier. And he said, I've got us a reservation and it's got this to die for steak and fondant.
We're ready.
I was like, okay, cool. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Book is done. I'm ready. Let's go out for dinner. And walking back through this had amazing dinner, gorgeous food. Walking back through the kind of big park in Montpellier in the centre of it, midnight by a fountain and a wine festival, and Brian proposed. And it was like 10 out of 10 proposal. He did, and now obviously I'm a connoisseur of proposals, so I thought it was a pretty good one at the time. I still stand by it. It was a really impressive one. And he proposed, and I remember wearing my engagement ring for the first time, and just thinking, I think I was lucky. I come from a family, no money left in this generation, but there were beautiful things handed down. So like I've got a hanging in the hall of our house. I've got a tapestry that is on its 5th generation of Sweetman women.
Lovely.
That's an amazing thing to own.
Yes.
Things my granny has left me, my great all that. But it was the first thing I'd ever owned that started with me. It was my first piece of the future. My engagement ring was quite literally something I could imagine my daughter, who was fiction, 10 years before we were going to have her, but I could imagine passing on to her one day.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
It is lovely. And, jewellery means so much to and different things to different people.
Hugely.
Now you get to create that for other people.
Well, and that's partly been my journey through jewellery, is love, hope and everything in between.
Yeah.
So my journey into jewellery started with that moment. And obviously I was just so happy, we were getting engaged, and I was like, I'd gone full circle as well. 10 years later, I'd understood that whilst marriage is not always forever, the celebration and the moment and that, that social statement of we are here and we are together, and the party. We did 5 days for our wedding. So it was that when else are you going to have everyone you love in one room?
Yeah.
How many days in your life? And so I wanted to have the people, we both felt really strongly. We were in the middle of, ultimately then got engaged and married 4 years later. We took the scenic route. So we weren't in a hurry. We were 26, got married at 30. 10 years this year, actually. And I really just thought, this is incredible. And it kind of started as a hobby. I was kind of making jewellery. And then I realised that actually I was going to go make beautiful things.
Which you do. And you do so well. So well. There's pictures all around my house. But you do and I think, I even love the names that you call the rings and, because the meaning behind them.
Well, because jewellery marks the biggest moments in our lives. I always think, so I kind of have this incredible thing because I'm a first generation jeweler. So most jewellery travels down generations, and most jewelers are generational jewelers. And so because I come with no legacy, I was able to do things like go, hey folks, why aren't we using all recycled gold? Why aren't we looking at lab grown diamonds? Why aren't we, because so often, diamonds. I always think you can't talk about jewellery without politics, which I think may be quite unique to me, but I feel it really strongly. So diamonds as an industry, the diamond industry, is basically madmen. Like honestly, if you had to look at the kind of the people who work in it, the kind of the way it's all set up, it's a cartel, first of all. Let's be clear, pretty much a cartel. De Beers is, one of the most established diamond businesses in the world. And it is basically made by men, for men, to give to women. And it's meant to mark, diamonds are meant to mark the day you get engaged, the day you get married, and the day you have your babies. And those are the only moments that matter on the diamond calendar. And yet as women, our lives are so much more nuanced. Yes, it's the day you fall in love, but it's also the day you get your heart broken. It's the day you get married. It's the day you get divorced. It's the day you have your babies. It's also the day you can't. And all of those moments, it's professional, personal success, loves, losses, triumphs and tribulations. And that my journey started with love, with my engagement ring. 11 years ago, we started Chupi, which is wild. We still have to do a birthday party. It'll be the summer. So 11 years. And I went and trained with an incredible silversmith called Cormac Cuff in Monkstown. He's amazing. I think he's still working. I haven't seen him in a while, but I'd love to. And learn kind of the fundamentals.
Yes.
But really worked with incredible goldsmiths who helped bring that vision to life. So mine is always, my job is the why. So in my job in Topshop, I solved the Friday night problem. In my job at Chupi, we ask ourselves, okay, I want to tell the person I love most in the world that I want to spend the rest of my life with them. I want something that symbolizes our union and our forever. I want something that says, fuck you, I'm going to do it. I want something that says, I'm choosing me. And I want to tell the people I love most in the world that I love them. So all of those problems. So when I start designing a new collection, I ask myself first, what's the problem I'm going to solve? And then that's why everything we do has a name. Yes. Everything I've ever made has a name that means something, because like I wear a lot of North Star. It's one of my favorite pieces. And I wear it because I've always been obsessed with the stars. My big brother, Charles, when I was very little, got us a globe, and it was like super technology. And in 1988, it's now obviously everywhere. It was basically an illuminated globe that would like flash it.
Put all the stars. I'd love that.
And I grew up in basically Wicklow as a nature reserve.
Yes.
So I didn't have I always remember being horrified by Granny's garden, which was actually really massive in retrospect, or really big. But it was because we had a 360-degree garden. Because like it was the countryside. You have you're on your land. We didn't have a lot of land, but you then have the mountain. And so grew up with like 180-degree sky that went from horizon to horizon.
Stunning.
And it was wild and beautiful. And it meant that, I grew up with this really powerful night landscape. And so my big brother had gotten me this nightscape. And so we would always go out and spot the stars. There's Artemis. There, let's go and look at the constellations. There's Cassiopeia, what's happening. And so the North Star is incredible because it's a fixed point. So everything else moves in the night sky. And sailors have used the North Star as a way of finding home.
Okay.
For as long as we can remember.
Forever, yeah.
Literally forever. How do you find home? And that idea of the North Star. And so I loved it. So one of my earliest ones was our North Star necklace. And that idea, because what I've always loved about the North Star is whether you were sailing away on adventure or finding your way home, you look at the same star, but we all have a different adventure. I always think my little sister, like my North Star is home at this chapter of my life. This is my North Star is my little family, our gang of friends. We've all bought near each other. So it's a running joke. We've all bought on the same bus route, basically, as much as possible. So some of us are a little bit more scattered. And it was really considered.
Yeah.
It was a genuine choice. And I was saying it to someone the other day and they're like, oh, it's a bit sad. And I was like, yeah, it really depends on how you define happiness. Mine is proximity to people I love.
Yes.
So for someone else, that's their idea of hell, is living with honestly, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd buy a house for all of my friends in the same street.
Oh, well, I have this conversation with friends. We always said we'd have this huge house and it would have like a communal kitchen downstairs and that everybody could just like...
I don't know if I'd share my kitchen. I'm like, could I live next door with a really nice kitchen and then come and visit?
I actually always said it'd be like the Bake Off because you'd have different islands.
And you could fight it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that amazing gang of friends has been such an important part in that proximity piece.
Yes.
Having the people you love all around you. And so it's been a huge part of our journey and story then was setting up that life, making sure that everyone was with, finding that peace. And then so much of my work was influenced by that, by the North Star, by mine is home, my little sister, who's 10 years younger, hers is adventure. Okay. She was just in Tanzania, somewhere bloody gorgeous and bloody crazy and bloody, and the other, literally down. My big sister is still announced last year she was retiring. I was like, wonderful, brilliant, retire, come back to Europe, please. Just live in the same continent, not even the same country, just come live in the same continent. And about a month after she told me, and I'd been waiting, suspiciously tapping my fingers, wondering when she was, and then she's like, hi, darling. Actually, I think should she even call me? I think she called me. She's like, hi, darling, I'm actually going to Kenya to work for the Norwegian Refugee Council. And I was like, of course you are.
Amazing.
Because that's what you do when you're 60. Yeah. And but she'd been in Washington for the last few years. But that idea of our North Stars are different.
Yes.
Mine is home.
No,
my sister's
absolutely.
has always been adventure.
And I mean, and you've created that home now for yourself and you have a gorgeous little munchkin who's...
Our tiny terror.
Absolutely. And but it wasn't easy.
No.
To get there.
No. We did a long road.
Yeah.
And I think that was my journey into joy began with love. But really hope was the thing I discovered. So I would always say people think jewelry is the business of love. They get engaged, they get married, they have your babies. Actually, jewelry is the business of hope.
Yeah.
You choose a piece of jewelry because you are hoping for a better tomorrow. You're choosing it for love, for loss. And that really came home to me. So I always think the irony, I spent 16 years trying not to get pregnant, 16 to 32, being like, don't get pregnant. And then when we were, I don't know, were we ready? But we thought we were. And subsequently found it might not be possible. Yeah. And it was one of the most devastating days. I just remember being like, the shock. That was the most profound thing of just being like, oh no, the tests have to be wrong. There has to be. And of course there wasn't, nothing to argue with. And it was, the doctor was very nice, but was like, this is going to be a very long road if it works. And I had gone into IVF thinking that, it was really tough. You do it and it's tough, and it's miserable and blah, 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 and it's expensive, but you get a baby at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bless my naivety. I discovered on that roller coaster and it's an emotional, physical, financial roller coaster, which I think I didn't fully appreciate. I think I understood the financial, that it'd be expensive. I don't think I quite understood how expensive. I knew there'd be some physical, but it was the emotional and that tornado of it. So we were 4 years. And at the start of the journey, we made a decision, which is not everyone's. And that's the nuance of it. It's so important that everyone makes their own decisions on this journey.
Yes.
And it's why it's my big bugbear is that you never ask. You never ask a woman or a man about their journey. Are they having babies? Are they not having babies? And it is nobody's difference. The hardest days, it was like, I swear to God, I had a sticker on my head saying, ask me, am I having a baby on the hardest days of my life? I took to telling people I hated children because I was just like, stop. People would be like, oh, Chupi, you've got to stop thinking about your career. You've got to stop thinking about your career, your biological clock. Or, have you thought about having babies? I remember a journalist, actually, it was a particularly tough one because we'd had a bad week. And I was just like, are you putting children on hold because of the business? I was like, oh, give me strength. But we made a decision at the very start, once the shock started to wear off, that we would have a family in whatever way it took, whether we fostered, whether we adopted, whether IVF worked, whatever road it took us, that for us, and it's not for everyone, that we wanted babies. Not babies, children.
Yes.
And or a child. And I made my crown of hope. So that is not very good. I can show it to the camera for anyone who's actually watching the video. But it is 5 diamonds. They're Marquise diamonds. So they point ever forward. They're like little arrows. And it was 5 diamonds to represent the 5 years. And so what I needed to know, I went from, having a vision board that said, start a family. Start a family this year, to having to take the first test. And that's where choose a clinic. I had to reframe my milestones into being a start a family to being these milestones. And so I made my ring it was my promise that within 5 years we would have started a family. And for me, what that looked like was we'd do our journey with IVF. We'd look at our adoption and fostering options. And it wasn't that in 5 years I would hold a baby in my arms.
Yes.
Because that wasn't something I could control, but that within 5 years. And for friends of ours who've been on the adoption journey, we have really dear friends who are actually, in about a week or two, probably by the time this podcast goes live, they'll be holding their baby.
Amazing.
And they've been on 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And other friends, they were 8 years before they got their little boy.
No, it's a tough journey. It's a different. Actually, last time I was interviewing you in Cork, so a lot of the women in Cork know my story, and obviously I was pregnant a lot of times, and 8 losses. And when we first started talking, I could feel the room sort of go, and I was like, "But I'm okay. My journey's been different, and the ending is different, but we're both in a good place."
And it's that, but isn't it like there's a sisterhood when you've been through it?
Yeah, 100%.
When you've done and
actually we realise so many of us have.
But that's actually why I've spoken about it and why I continue to speak about it. Oh no, but it is because it's like even though 4 years in, our girl arrived.
Yes.
So I have a ring for the day we started our journey, and a ring for the day she arrived into the world. But it won't undo the loss.
No.
And that's, I think, the thing, and that's why there's a sisterhood of people who've been through it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't eradicate the 4 years.
No.
But of course, I also recognize I am a crier. I've always been a crier. But I so recognize, holding her in my arms is the best gift ever. But it doesn't eradicate the 4 years where we didn't.
No.
And the loss of, it's a huge loss of innocence. Because you think, oh, it's going to work out. And it doesn't for everyone. And we have friends it hasn't. And it's wild.
It is wild. And I always say to people, just know that you will be okay.
Yes.
There will be a different journey for you, and there's a different reason. I see something different in my future. And that's taken time.
Hugely.
But
because it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love the fact that it came together. I love the fact that you have this fabulous business. I love all the meanings behind the rings.
Yeah.
You have your little pod. You have your mates on your bus route. You're such a fortunate lady.
Hugely.
But you've created that fortune too.
It's really interesting, isn't it? That idea of luck. And I always think about that. The harder I work, the luckier I get. And I recognize in my own privilege. I'm white. I was born with an Irish passport. And that passport privilege, particularly when we look at what's going on in the world, I am so aware of my passport privilege. I'm aware of the privilege of being white, of being European, of having an Irish passport, of coming from a very good family. Whilst there was no bloody money, there was lots of love. Like, we were brought up on the welfare, but I had so much love and so much support and stability, and that all of those privileges are huge. And all of those things in our lives, like our daughter, that was the longest, hardest road I've ever walked and we ever walked. And yet there's such magic to it. But it doesn't mean, I don't think, someone asked me the other day if she hadn't been born, that would we have been okay? Of course we would have.
Yeah, you would.
I would have forged a different life. We would have absolutely, if we had been unable to have, if babies hadn't been part of our plan. And being clear, I'm not religious, so I don't believe that God has a magical plan for all of us. And I find it quite patronizing in the fertility space, where people are like, have you considered taking a break or resting?
Don't get me started.
Don't, right? Or like, have you considered, just relax?
Yes.
I was like, I have the world's most expensive fucking doctors. I'm cursing again. I have the world's most expensive doctors. If they can't fix it, honey, a holiday in Marbella is not going to solve my problem. Yeah. But that idea of like, I don't think there's a plan and a path. And I struggle with manifestation. I think there's a real privilege to the idea that we can just like, if you just dream it, it's going to happen. You just get your vision board. But what I do believe is, on the day when we found out, I had to go home and, sit and absorb the shock. And in the subsequent weeks go, my plan said babies this year.
Yes.
And it's not happening. But I got to reshape the plan and go, okay, what does that look like? What am I going to do for myself? How am I going to mind myself? And I had a vision. And I've always, every 3 years, I sit down and I write a new vision for what I want my life to look like. It doesn't mean it always works, but what it does is it gives me a map. My vision is a map that takes me on the road to where I want to go, because otherwise, how do you make your choices? How do you decide what you're going to do?
Yeah.
And, starting and running a business has been a roller coaster. Chupi has had some incredible lows, some utterly heartbreaking, incredible lows, and some utterly amazing highs. Like we've been at both ends of the spectrum, and I'm sometimes on it both in one day. And it's amazing, but it's the journey we've chosen. And Brian and I check in on this every now and then. I'm like, are we good? Is this the journey? Are we doing the right thing? Are we, everyone told me, actually, funny enough, when she was born, that I would just want to be a stay-at-home mum. And no disrespect to anyone who's chosen it, but it was like this kind of, oh, wait till biology kicks in. Then you'll know you should be at home. And I was like,
no,
I don't think
it's not for everybody.
No, and it's different. And like, isn't that magic of each of us getting to choose our own path, and then we get to define our future and define happiness.
I love it. Yeah. But I love that you have that. I love everything you do. I love what's to come. Like I say, you bring a little bit of magic, the way you dress, everything about it. But that little bit of sparkle.
Dopamine dressing.
Yeah.
I actually do think my granny was a bit terrifying. But I always credit her with that, which was, there is no such thing as a good day. Wear your silk dress, dance in your good shoes, wear the sequins.
Light the candle.
Light the candle.
I always go, light the candle.
Light the candle.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much.
My pleasure.
I've really enjoyed that. And I just can't wait to chat again, actually. But it was amazing. Thank you so much, Chupi.
Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you for listening to this week's Be-Bell podcast. Don't forget, you can find us on social media. If you've got any questions, then please don't hesitate to DM us at @bbell_wellness. You can also find this on our YouTube channel, which is my YouTube channel, Sian Horn. And don't forget, the more people that subscribe, the better that we can make this pod. So don't forget, like and subscribe across all channels. And thank you.